guys, so today I want to talk about the difference between giving excuses and giving explanations, because I feel like it's a very specific distinction to make and not a lot of people do it, and this often gets in the way of like productive communication. And I've come to a pretty simple conclusion about what distinguishes an excuse from an explanation, and I want to talk about it. An excuse is something someone gives in order to get away with what they did, or say, you shouldn't be upset at me right now, or this isn't my fault, etc. An explanation has the intention of giving information so that the other person understands what happened and why it happened in order to make them feel better. So really the difference lies in who the action is actually making feel better. When you give an excuse, it is to make yourself feel better and absolve yourself of any fault by saying there were reasons that this happened and they had nothing to do with me. They were external factors and I didn't have control over them. An explanation is more of a dialogue and involves the other person's feelings. When you give an explanation, you're acknowledging that your actions hurt someone and apologizing for them and explaining why they happened, not to get away with what you did, but to make that person feel better and say, hey, this really wasn't about you. I'm sorry that I messed up, but here's what was happening. Another difference is that an excuse kind of expects forgiveness, whereas an explanation does not. If you're excusing your behavior, you're basically saying what I did wasn't wrong, and therefore you should not be upset with me. Whereas an explanation is saying, yeah, I understand that this hurt you. Here's why I did it, and I hope that you can understand where it was coming from, but if you don't forgive me, at least you have all the information. And when you look at it that way, it's just so clear which one you should be doing when you apologize. No one is obligated to forgive you once you make a mistake, and giving an excuse implies that they are, and explaining it at least gives them the information they might need to feel better about themselves. And if they decide to forgive you with that explanation, that's great, but they don't have to, and offering an explanation instead of an excuse is acknowledging that. But let's be real, we've all given excuses for mistakes that we've made. It happens. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, but when you have the urge to just jump to giving excuses and not explanations, that indicates that you need to take more time for yourself to evaluate what happened and not just put it on the other person right away. When you want to give excuses, it says something about where you're at with yourself when you've made a mistake. What it says is, this isn't my fault and I should be fine and off the hook. And if you're feeling that way, you should take that time to really internalize why you did it. And you shouldn't beat yourself up for it, but you should probably take the time to think about what you did, and if you really do feel guilty about it, process those emotions and work on them productively. Get to the point where you don't feel like you need to justify things to yourself, because if you don't need to justify things to yourself anymore, there's no reason to justify them to the other person. Because if you want to resolve things, you need to acknowledge what you did wrong, whether or not it was your fault, and acknowledge the other person's feelings and try to make them feel better. Because yeah, what you did probably doesn't make you a terrible person, but you shouldn't have to justify that to them. Just explaining what happened and why it happened is enough. But when you explain those things, don't expect forgiveness, especially not right away. Focus on their feelings and hope that what you're saying is making them feel better. Because ideally, you've already taken care of yourself and dealt with your own feelings about it. And right now, the focus should be on them and how they're feeling and consoling them. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that really quick because I have gotten a lot of excuses lately and it kind of bothers me, and there's a pretty easy way to go about explaining things rather than just excusing them, and it makes everyone feel a whole lot better. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time I make a video. Maybe this can come in handy while we're all suffering through Mercury being in retrograde and communication just being thrown off. We need interventions about how we talk to each other. Thanks, Mercury.